Buccaneers. They drafted a linebacker 5th overall in 2019. He came of age during the 2020 postseason. He took over defensively along with Antoine Winfield Jr. Remember that play against the Saints where Winfield rips the ball out from Jared Cook, Devin White recovers it, runs it down, and really turns the game around. And then he had a couple of other moments where it's like, man, this guy can take over.
Definitely.
If he really wants to, he can take over. Now he wants out. That's what he really wants. He's entering his 5th year at $11 million in change as his salary, but clearly frustrated by the lack of progress toward a long-term contract.
Right.
White reportedly wants traded. The Buccaneers have zero intention to trade him.
Your favorite
which, of
word,
course,
Mike.
is usually the precursor to a trade. We have zero intention to trade Devin White, which means make us an offer we won't refuse. That's where it stands.
Yeah, it feels like Roquan Smith 2.0, like right here, right now. And, I know it's not apples to apples there, but awesome middle linebacker who, yes, it's a brutal position, and he plays it like a kamikaze. I mean, that's what he does. You just mentioned, some of the plays he made. They put a ton of pressure on him. I mean, they asked him to do things where, remember last year there was a little bit of a negativity on Devin White, right? What game was that? The Ravens game where he didn't play well and he didn't hustle and some of that.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right? So
blown up, got shoved 30 yards down the field by Tyler Linderbaum. Remember that?
Yeah, right. It wasn't his best game. It wasn't. But, to be fair to the individual, too, I will say, and I think you heard me say this, they asked Devin White to do things that most linebackers in football are not going to be asked to do. And I think that's sometimes where, the public has to realize that too. They put him in positions that, Johnny average linebacker will never do. And he'll be graded nicely by all the grading companies out there. Oh, look, he filled his gap. He filled his gap. He filled his gap. They asked Devin White to do cover Travis Kelce man-to-man. Oh, we're going to do some crazy stunt in the middle. We want you to be on the edge after it's all said and done and take the D gap and then take on that guard and make the tackle. And so he's asked to do advanced things. He's very important to their defense. And like a running back, Mike, he's in a car crash business, and he's a big-time car crash, player that way. So that's where I understand him wanting money and wanting that security right now and not risking another year with this.
Yeah, if you've played well enough that they wanted to pick up the 5th-year option, that means presumably they want to keep you around. At some point, you got to draw the line in the sand and get the deal done. And when they say zero intent to trade, that tells me they are willing to sit back and see what someone will offer them for him. But the other side of it is, if you're going to trade for him, you better be ready to sign him. And it is a lot like the Roquan Smith situation where it feels like an impasse has been reached. There's a number that's been put on Devin White's second contract that he's not happy with. So now he wants to move on. And it has been a mixed bag for him. You need to get him in a spot where it is going to work out, where it is going to be fruitful more often than not. And he's going to have to pack up his horse and take his horse to a new location. Remember, he was riding a horse around
on the field.
Where was this? With the Lombardi Trophy after they won the Super Bowl a few years back. Right. So a great character, a guy who I thought the future was very, very bright for after that Super Bowl win. But the past couple of seasons since then, it has not been great. And it was intense scrutiny and criticism after that Thursday night game. When it looked like he was loafing at times, that became a talking point. Was he really running to the ball?
Right.
Had he given up on the play? And look, there's a lot that we don't know about what a guy's dealing with physically. They expect guys to keep their mouths shut about injuries that aren't on the injury report. That can be a factor, and there goes the horse. They play football on there, and I know that the horses, I know from being to enough parades when I was a kid, that there are certain functions of the horses that look downright involuntary, where the stuff just falls out. So I guess you consider it fertilizer for the
that's right. It needs it. Look, it's after
but at least it's
over
grass
at this point. It's grass, right?
That's true.
Yeah, they'll make it work. They'll make it work. And I do think that was.
It reminds me of Jared Allen riding the horse out onto the field when they put him in the Ring of Honor in Minnesota, and the horse did what horses do, and it's not grass, so it ain't going anywhere. It's just going right down into the little toxic rubber pellets.
Yes, those great rubber. I used to think about that all the time with those damn rubber pellets. I used to be like, damn, I just saw like 6 defensive linemen standing here, and they all blew their nose on the field, and I'm going to get tackled there in a few minutes. This is great. It's a great spot. Way to go. It's not my favorite thing about those pellets, that's for sure.
I thought you were going to say that the pellets are the greater concern, because I've seen blurbs over the years that suggest there's a true toxicity.
Sure.
They're ground up
rubber
tires.
Right.
Good news. They finally found a practical use for all those old tires that otherwise sit in a giant pile and periodically catch on fire. They finally found a use for them. The problem is they're getting in the eyes and the mouth and the open wounds of football players and soccer players and anybody who's playing on that stuff. What a shock if it ends up that there are clusters of cancers because of these toxic rubber pellets. So
I know.
You should prefer to play on
grass.
what the horse left behind.
That's right.
Than instead of the toxic rubber pellets.
So, yeah, but I wonder, too, with this whole thing with Devin White, what is the number?
If you dropped a hamburger on the black rubber pellets, would you eat it?
No, I would not. I would not do it. I would definitely not. No way. I'm not doing it.
It's just sesame seeds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've learned my lesson. I drop my hamburger.
Seeds.
I'm not eating it no matter what, pretty much at this point. I learned. But, back to the Devin White thing. I wonder, what's the money he's looking for? I'm sure he views himself, like you said, at his best, he's one of the most physically gifted linebackers in football, but he hasn't been at his best the last 2 years. It's been a little undisciplined and not playing maybe up to the total, level that he has shown us he's capable of there, right? But still a really damn good football player. And, what does he want? Does he want a Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds type of contract, or somewhere in that ballpark? I would guess that Tremaine Edmonds, he looks at that and goes, wait, I should get that. And I can imagine the Bucs going, hey, when you're at your best, sure, you should get that. But you've shown us, like you said a minute ago, a year and a half here of it's not your best football, and we're not sure where you're going to go there. And that's probably where the disconnect would stand, at least from a guy like me who's, watching from 1,000 feet above and just trying to connect some dots here.
4 years, 72 for Tremaine Edmonds earlier this year from the Bears, and Roquan Smith toward the end of the 2022 season got a 5-year, $100 million contract from the Ravens. And obviously those are just the big picture, broad brush numbers. You have to dig into the details to see what they're really worth, but they are more significant, more dramatic than that 5th-year option. And I know that people say all the time, oh, how's he ever going to live on $11 million? Folks, this is
his life. This is what he does. This is the time now to make the money, or he's not going to make it. Right.
This is the time to make it. And the moment that you have an overabundance of injury, ineffectiveness, you lose a step, whatever it may be, they're not going to pay you that money. Yes, $11 million is a lot of money to make, but it's going to carry this guy ostensibly for the rest of his life. You get as much as you can. You get that $25 million signing bonus if you can. You put that in the bank and you live off the interest. I mean, this gets back to the struggle we've talked about, getting people to understand that in a fight between millionaires and billionaires, we shouldn't side with the billionaires, that they're not all in the same bucket. The millionaires, first of all, a lot of them aren't even millionaires. They may be making $1 million a year, but that doesn't mean they got $1 million in the bank.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean they have a net worth of $1 million.
Right.
And it's all going to go away. It's all going to be spent. They have 4 or 5 years, maybe, non-quarterbacks, 4 or 5 years where the window's open on significant compensation, if that much. So let's not think negatively about a guy who's trying to get what he can while he can. I mean, Buccaneers fans may feel, because again, you're rooting for the laundry. If you're the fan of the team, all these guys are going to be gone. Everybody on the team is going to be gone, and I'm still going to be a fan of the Buccaneers. So when in doubt, I'm siding with the team.
Yeah,
but understand,
that's the way it is.
Just trying to get fair compensation for what he brings to the table, and the salary cap keeps going up and up. We focus on how much money a guy's making, how much he wants, but we never finish the thought by saying, oh, by the way, the salary cap, which was like $40 million when they started, is now $220 million plus. So the money's there to pay these guys, and I have no problem with a guy trying to get paid, especially a guy who has proven he can be a great player.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way there. You're right. This is not not a doctor or a lawyer where we can keep doing this and we're 49 years old or 55 years old. You got to strike while the iron's hot. The time is now. And yes, I mean, listen, I'm the perfect example and a guy to tell you, like, you better strike while the iron's hot because crap happens. Like, yeah, all the time in the sport. And then all of a sudden an injury happens and you go, damn, I was worth a lot more money just a few weeks ago before this injury. Now it's not ever the same, and I'm never going to get that money back where I could have been a jerk, but I said, oh, let me be a good team guy and go out there and I'll just play team football, and then, get screwed over and they go, hey, we don't want you on the team anymore. Get out of here. That's, come on, everybody. Let's not side with the billionaires.
And last thought on this before we move on. For all we know, the night that he was loafing and getting shoved around against the Baltimore Ravens, for all we know, he found out that day that they weren't going to give him the contract he wanted. Or, and he's playing a position where you're constantly in danger of a serious injury. And maybe he had the realization that day or that week that they're not going to take care of me. I got to get through this season healthy before I'm going to have any shot at getting the contract I want. They're not going to pay me during my fourth season. I got to find a way to play this game at a high level and not put myself in a situation where I suffer an injury that derails my entire earning capacity. Guys deal with that from time to time. It's one of the many factors, one of the many issues that a pro athlete has to handle as he gets himself ready to go out there and get it done. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.